Hey, folks, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here. Thank you for tuning in. This week, we have our Western Regional Coordinator here at Fall Obsession back on the show, Tim Berges. He's a Colorado resident. And if you guys have followed our podcast, listened to episodes over the years, you've probably heard Tim on here before. And around this time every year, we do an annual episode where he takes us through the Colorado big game draw applications and hunting licenses, all of the new changes for the new year after Colorado puts out their book. So we're doing just that. Colorado just put out their manual for 2025, and we're diving into it and talking about some of the changes and some of the things that hunters can expect if you are putting in to hunt Colorado, if you're putting in for points, anything of the sort, anything to do with hunting elk, deer, bear, pronghorn, anything out there in out west in Colorado. So it's an educational episode. This isn't guys just sitting around talking hunting stories or anything like that in this particular one. This episode, like I said, we do it every year to help educate you guys. And there's also a written resource with the same information on our website, fallobsession.com. You guys can find what Tim put together for y'all over there and educate yourselves if you're looking to pull a specific piece of information regarding your hunt that you have coming up or trying to plan for this year. So, hope you guys get some out of this podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get to our conversation, though, got to hit a few things with our partners. The first one being Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is a podcast sponsor. I love my Hoot gear. It is great stuff. It's high quality. The pattern's versatile. The gear holds up great against the elements. Very durable. Worn it in Texas. I've worn it in Idaho. I've worn it in Colorado. Actually, out at Tim's family's land on a mule deer hunt. Can't say enough about it. Again, great quality gear. They have more than just hunting gear as well. They also have fishing gear and lifestyle, just general wear. If you guys are just looking to get into something fresh, so go check out what Hoot Camo's doing over there and use the code FALLOBSESSION15 at checkout. That's going to save you guys some money. Again, Hoot Camo, hootcamo.com. Bear River Archery is the official archery pro shop and archery range of Fall Obsession. We just did a podcast actually out there in the bow shop with Justin Canaday, their owner. They're in Van Alstyne, Texas. That's actually our last podcast episode, episode 224. You guys go check that out. But Bear River is doing some awesome stuff for archers in the North Texas area. So if you are local to us here and you haven't been to Bear River in Van Alstyne, you need to go check them out. Let Justin know that Fall Obsession sent you and go see everything they have going on at Bear River Archery. Trophy Edits has a discount code for you guys, and that is Fall Obsession, all one word, all lowercase letters. That will save you guys some money on your next order through them. Think of Trophy Edits like digital taxidermy. We all have mounts on our walls that signify a great moment out in the woods for us at some point in our life. And some of us don't have the mounts, but we have photographs that do the same thing. And maybe even we're wanting to put those photos on our wall. Trophy Edits cleans those photos up and makes them just absolutely extraordinary, print worthy to go on the wall, no matter what kind of photo you're dealing with. So give them a shot to do some work for you. And again, put those significant moments in a place where you can remember them forever. Go check out Trophy Edits and everything they have going on over there and use that discount code to save some money on your next order. The Outdoor Call Radio app is a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He has an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, is on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, along with tons of other hunting shows and podcasts we all know and love. Go download the app today. It's free. You can start streaming immediately, and be sure that you follow the Outdoor Call Radio app Facebook page so you catch the live radio show broadcast throughout the week. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app. Go check them out today. Last but not least, thank you guys again for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. If you have not already, hit the follow or subscribe button up there. Turn your notifications on if that's an option. That way you guys know every time we drop a new podcast. We have new podcast episodes coming out weekly on all major podcast platforms. You can catch the audio versions anywhere you listen. And then the video version of our podcast also hit the YouTube channel on Thursdays Be sure you are subscribed to that YouTube channel because we have some awesome content coming that way as well. We have several different films and show episodes in our editing room right now that we're wrapping up, including the one that we just released. We have a new one on the YouTube channel. It's called The Steep and Deep Idaho Elk 2024. That is a film that you guys do not want to miss. It is a great time. It's a great production, and you guys are going to want to put it on the big screen. Go check it out on the YouTube channel right now, and be sure you are subscribed over there. fallobsession.com is the website. That's where you can go to find all of our content, all of our different shows, productions, educational articles. Our store's on there as well. You can pick you up a hat or a shirt if you'd like. We got some cool designs. Help support a small-time hunting brand. We always appreciate that. And whatever social media platforms you guys frequent or are active on, be sure you are following us on social media because we post multiple times a day throughout the week with frequent updates from the field and our staff. And that includes gear reviews, photography, reels, videos, educational stuff. You name it, we got it. We do everything in hunting and outdoor media. Last but not least, be sure you are streaming our shows on Carbon TV. If you haven't heard of Carbon TV, it's like Netflix for hunting, basically, except it's free. I know. Can't believe it. I love it. It's free. But you guys can stream 4 different shows from Fall Obsession, including this podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, as well as our 2 different hunting shows, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. All those can be found on Carbon TV. And with that, we are going over to our episode this week with Tim. We're going to learn about what changed in Colorado for 2025 when it comes to draw applications and licensing. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. I'm Sam hosting you guys. My guest this week, returning to our show, is our Western Regional Coordinator here at Fall Obsession, Tim Berges. Welcome back, man.
Hey, good to have you.
Always fun to catch up and everything. And for our viewers who are new to the show, who don't know who you are or anything, we've had some a couple of hunting adventures together over the years. You came down here to Texas at one point and shot some small Texas whitetails compared to what you have up there in Colorado. And me and Mike went up there and joined you up there back in 23 for a whitetail / mule deer hunt that folks can find on our YouTube channel as well. So looking forward to doing it again whenever that time comes. So
Yeah, we'll have to get you up again for sure. Probably not this year, but maybe next year.
yeah, we'll have to figure something out for sure. But this podcast, this is an episode that we do annually around this time, and our listeners and audience that hunt out west and certainly that hunt Colorado can definitely benefit from this podcast. You are very, very knowledgeable, very tuned into what goes on with the Colorado draw applications, big game tags, just hunting seasons and licensing up there in general, which to an outsider like me can be very complicated or seem very complicated. So we try to do this every year where we record a podcast after Colorado puts out their book every February, to talk about what changed and what folks can expect, what they should do if they're looking at a few different scenarios. And obviously at the end, we'll tell them how to get in touch with you if they have additional questions and stuff. But for 2025, man, I guess I'll just dive in and start us off by just asking what is it drastically different? Do we have big changes that we need to discuss?
Not too bad. 28 is going to be crazy. So when we get there, we'll probably have to have a 5-hour show, but we'll get there in a few years and worry about it then.
It'll be a month-long series.
Yeah, we might have to do 2 or 3. Because basically at that point they're redoing all the major seasons and the way the whole draw works in general. Where I don't think it's finalized, but something about you can use your preference points on your second, third, and fourth choices. So when they finally publish it, we'll probably have to do like 2 or 3 on it because it is going to be insane. But for this year, a couple big things. I think the biggest one for me is that there's an early season rifle for deer some places, not everywhere. Most places looks like it's buck only. So that's going to be kind of a new thing, is getting to hunt like early October, sometimes even earlier than that, for deer with a rifle, in particular mule deer units. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
So
it could be
is this a new season, or is there a new tag that comes with that season?
both. So it's a whole brand new. So traditionally for deer, there's only been, it splits basically at I-25. So if you're east or west, there's 2 different seasons. So like at my farm, there's basically the early rifle and the late rifle. So there's an early one that's like basically Halloween through the 2nd or 5th of November, somewhere in that range every year. It's not quite exactly that, but basically it's about 10 days of that period. And then there's a late rifle that's it's always December 1st through December 14th. So that's the 2 rifles out east. Or now they have a 4th rifle season in the mountains, which they're going to call first rifle, which coincides with the first elk rifle season. Whereas in the past, they've never had that for deer. It's on a limited number of units. It's not any that I would probably actually hunt, but definitely will be hopefully spread out some hunters and get some more opportunity out there. If you were looking at a second rifle over the counter elk tag, it's an easy way to maybe get a deer tag too, because I think a lot of people are going to be a little skeptical of what does this really look like, and not maybe go for it shouldn't be too many points to draw it in most places, but we'll kind of wait and see. If it has success, it'll flip next year where it's probably a super coveted tag. So we'll probably reassess in a year to know what's going on. But I think right now it's going to be a little bit more forgiving to some degree. I mean, it's not going to be a 0-point tag. I think it'll be a 2 or 3 point tag. But if you're in that under 5 and you're going to go second rifle for elk, it would make sense to put in for this one probably too.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, man, I'm putting it in your court as far as how you want to go through this and everything. Like our returning listeners that have either read your articles or listened to previous year's podcast or both, they know how much information is poured into this thing and everything. And this episode it's designed to be an educational episode in that regard. It's not 2 guys getting on here just talking a bunch of hunting stories or anything. Like there's education and purpose behind this one, which happens from time to time. But however you want to go through this or take us into this and discuss these changes, I'm putting it in your court. So
cool. Yeah. So Cardo does this thing where every year it tags and all the fees go up by basically a cost of living index increase. This is the first year they've done it where like as a non-resident, your like application fees gone up. So you probably remember from previous years, for you, it was $10 for that per species. After you pay all the other dumb fees, now it's $11 per species. So not a huge difference, but if you're putting in for 5 or 6 or 7, like it's definitely going to add up. Tags are now for non-residents. Your small game is over $100 now. Your turkey tag's just short of 200. Habitat's down to another 12. So if you're going to do turkey tag, you're over $200 before you put in for species. And then, like I said, 11 a piece. So cheapest you can get in is either 125 and a penny for small game, or 212, 33 for turkey. Then add $11 per animal you want to put in besides that first one. So it's getting pricey. Same thing. They're still doing the $50 charge, or $100 if you're non-resident, $50 if you're resident, for moose, bighorn, and mountain goat. So just make sure if you are putting in for those, you check that you want that point. Otherwise, there's really no reason to put in for it, because you'll never draw with 0 and pay that money. It comes out early May usually for the mountain goat and the bighorn. And then it will come out late May for the moose. This year they moved up the draw date you find out by about a week. So that's kind of cool, as you'll find out right around, I forget the exact dates, but it's like the end of May. Let's see, May 27th to May 30th, whereas traditionally it was about a week later than that. So it's kind of cool that they finally are getting stuff together, getting it out earlier. So you'll
Yeah.
know before June starts, and then you have till June 2nd to surrender your license with no penalties and get your points back, or you have to pay by the 13th. Second draws, same time frame as last year, pretty much end of June. You pay in July, or you put in the middle of June. You find out the end of June, and then or find out early July, and then pay by middle of July. So no real changes there. This year the deadline's really early for the first draw though. It's April 1st, 8 p.m. So Nick, make sure you get that right. April 1st, 8 p.m. I don't want to have to call you this year.
Put it on your
So
calendar, buddy.
yeah, we got you now. You're good, Nick. So yeah, that's the like other big change a little bit earlier. Like I think I was telling you before, last year is the second. No, not a big change from that, but other years I was looking back through the articles, it was as late as the 9th. And usually it was between the 6th and the 9th. So it is, a half a week or a week earlier, depending how you look at it. Deer tags are just under $500 now for non-resident, $494 and change. Elk tags are up to $825, so pretty spicy there. So with your license and that, you're in over
Yeah.
1,000 to start with. So it's getting up there for sure.
It doesn't seem to be an uncommon range though for elk across the country. So
No,
when it's all said and done.
It's pretty normal. I mean, it's crazy that like that's the new normal, but that
Yeah.
is like $1,000 everywhere. And if you do like Wyoming, if you do like their special draw, you're at like 16 or 1,800 just for that application. Like
Wow.
if you draw it. So, it's not really that much more than anybody else, but it's still a lot of money. Locally, and the elk herd is taking a little bit of a beating. The wolves are doing some work. As we all expected they would. They dropped another set of wolves 2 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, something like that, that have caused some problems already. But there's really nothing that's going to happen there, no matter how many lawsuits or dollars we waste in conservation fees trying to get rid of them. So that's not going to change. I think it's just kind of one of those things where if you're near the top in points, you probably want to spend them sooner rather than later. I definitely would not wait till 27 because everybody who's got high points is going to be dumping them in 27 because of those changes I was talking about in 28. So I'd say if you have 20 or more points, you need to make a plan to use them in the next 2 years, like either this year or next year, because 27, everyone's going to be dumping points. And then beyond that, it'll get really interesting what things look like. I said in 28 and on.
So on the wolves real quick before we stray too far from it, because obviously wolves, mountain lions, all that stuff in recent years, hot topics, hot buttons in Colorado and everything. As you just said, they're doing what everyone thought they would do as far as impacting wildlife, livestock, all that kind of stuff. But as a Colorado resident, I'm curious, and I have somewhere I'm going with this. I'll get to that in a second. But as a Colorado resident, somebody who's knowledgeable about all that, do you legitimately think there's nothing that can be done, or what has to happen before something finally does change with wolves?
Well, the last pack they dropped fairly close to Aspen. I think the only thing that could maybe like happen that might sway public opinion enough to actually make legal change would be that like pets in the city of Aspen are eaten regularly. Do I wish for that? No, I don't. I hope that doesn't happen because then we're going to have other problems from a lot of ways. And like realistically that, or they come down the other side and go into Boulder or some of those big suburbs on the northwest side of town and eat pets there regularly. Like if that starts happening, yeah, there'll be maybe we'll get the ability to have some kind of state controls. I mean, getting them delisted from the Endangered Species Act is probably the real end game before anything could possibly happen from a hunter's perspective or actual like controls perspective. That's probably like 15, 20 years down the road minimum. Let's be real. I mean, they're still fighting that in like northern Minnesota and Wisconsin and all that kind of stuff. And they've been above objective for, I think, over 10 years now. And that population's set. grizzlies are way above population of Wyoming, and they aren't delisted. They probably never will be, no matter how hard we all try. And it's the right thing to do. It's just never going to happen. So I think realistically, you just kind of have to be like, hey, it's a thing we have, and they're cool to look at when you see them on a rare basis. But hopefully, it's few and far between, and hopefully, it doesn't actually cause issues for your hunt. I will say I've hunted and seen them even before the introduction, so it wasn't like, they've been here. It's just a matter of where you're hunting.
Mhm.
It's getting interesting because there's supposedly sightings way down in southeast Colorado, like 2 hours south of my farm. Like on that side of Colorado, there's supposedly some sightings, which if like they've traveled that far, we're going to have some really interesting things happen, just because of the amount of cattle and everything down there. And just a different population of people than the mountains and everything. So if that really is true, I don't know if those spottings are real or whatever. But there's been some stuff in the news I've seen the last couple of days about that, and it'll be interesting. Definitely event. There's mountain lions kind of out by my farm along the river. It's like up by the time we went to get Mike's license. There's been a couple spottings there too. Those I totally believe because they just follow that river down, and the elk do that all the time. So that one doesn't surprise me. And as predators get into populated areas, it'll kind of just be how much problems do they cause before controls happen. I think from a mountain lions perspective, Cardo manages mountain lions excellently. We have great like local hounds groups that do a great job. Cardo United Houndsmen do an awesome job of making sure that they want mature males taken. I get newsletters from them all the time. I support them with my other side job, and they're always about take ethical lions, take full grown males. We don't want any females. We don't want any kids. We don't want any juveniles taken unless it's a like life or death situation. So they're super on the front door of managing public appearance and everything. So that's great to know that we have groups that are super focused on that, and very much the ones who probably take 50 or 60 or 70% of the lions, and that's their goal, is to make sure that only the right ones are taken. So that's cool and everything there with the management side. And I know CPW is on the same board where they want ethical takes on lions and everything, and it's been happening, and there's not really been any issues there. There's been an increase in females the last couple of years in like Cardo, Utah, and New Mexico, so they're all making a point about, hey, before this gets any worse, let's kind of nip it in the bud ourselves before it becomes a PR issue on the other side.
Yeah. Well, definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays out and everything. And my hope is that it doesn't take years or decades for something like this to get resolved or turned around. And that's where I guess I'll just leave our listeners with the little teaser is I have in the coming weeks John Stallone from How for Wildlife coming back on our podcast to talk about that very situation and everything, and some stuff that he's got going on with that. So be a very interesting episode. And that's why I kind of pick your brain about it too, just as a Colorado hunter and Colorado resident, your thoughts and perspective from it. So, but there's organizations that could help. It's just a lot's going to have to go right. So,
yeah, and I just think being realistic is the right move. I mean, even if they get, like I said, with Minnesota and everything, they're still fighting that for over objective for 10 years or more. We're not anywhere close to objective on wolves. So I think the projected, like the rough population equivalent is like 600 wolves. We're probably at like 40 or 60, counting the crossovers that they haven't really counted. So we're at maybe 10% of what they want here. So saying that we're going to be at a place to argue that anytime soon is just, to me, unrealistic. I mean, we'll see what happens, and maybe some things will change, but
yeah,
that's kind of where, as hunters, it sucks, but we also have to be realistic about like this environment can support 600 wolves, like, easily. Like, let's be really honest. It's not going to be great for deer. It's not going to be great for elk, not great for pronghorn, not great for cattle, sheep, goats, you name it. But there's plenty of food to support 600 or 700 wolves in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. It's just not what anybody wants from a hunter perspective.
It's not what anybody wants, and then it's okay, you've reached that point, right? Then what? Then what?
Yeah,
The anticipating a continued expansion beyond that to where it's unhealthy for everything in the balance, that's where big issues are coming into play. So
absolutely. And one kind of funny thing on the flip side is, so Rocky Mountain National Park put up a thing last night or day before, I forget which, but about 3% of its land mass are like willow waterlands that are like prime moose habitat. Well, there's been a moose overpopulation in the national park. Obviously, there's been no predators there. There's no wolves released in the national park. The closest release was like 60 miles away. And as far as the tracking data by GPS, which I trust they're actually going to release the right data because they have to by law for the most part. I mean, they do, but I don't expect it to be live. But every month they drop a thing on Facebook where that's where they've been the last month. So I believe it's real. They have not been in a national park yet. Well, the moose have eaten up these wetlands so much to the point that they're almost destroyed, like beyond recovery. And so there's a whole talk about culling moose in Rocky Mountain National Park and like the surrounding like tiny little area. And of course, in the park, it won't be hunters. That'll be national federal government employees or contractors.
right.
And the unit right outside of it is usually a really hard to draw moose unit, and it's not really the area that they hang out in. So it's not really a high percentage hunt unit anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Kind of on the flip side of things, it's like, well, maybe in this one instant, it'd be nice if we had a couple wolves in this one little area instead of eating people's cattle 100 miles away or everything else. So it's kind of funny.
Interesting. Yeah, I will be curious to see how that plays out.
But
Well, I guess we'll get back on track a little bit with what you got going on and what you prepared for us and everything. I kind of you mentioned wolves, and I took the opportunity to open the door and go in real quick and talk about that, but we'll get back on track here.
yeah, no worries. There's a bunch of like smaller changes for sure on the elk side of things. As a non-resident, there's not a whole lot of opportunity for archery. That got squashed big time, as you probably have seen. Basically, if you are a non-resident, your units are like east of I-25 only as a over the counter, which most of those are either feast or famine, and they're definitely like you need private land access to have realistic success. If you do,
I was gonna say you drive up or down 25 and you look east, and it does not look like elk country.
what's crazy is it's actually like from a traditional like back in like 1800 standpoint, they all much prefer the big open grasslands
Yeah.
that are out there. But once it became farmland, that kind of changed that, and then they all moved to the mountains. But so when they are there though, like they're herded up, and you'll have herds of hundreds, if not thousands at once, big bulls that are just chilling. And they've got nobody bother them because it's just there's no real way to hunt them effectively other than just like you shooting into a group, which is definitely frowned upon, and you got to be really on top of picking out one individual animal and shooting that individual animal only. So if you are looking to come for archery, either I would say realistically you need to hire an outfitter. If the over the counter is going to be your only option, because otherwise you're going to be knocking on doors and praying, and you're not going to have a whole lot of success. But there are some good outfitters that do have good access in some of these units, but definitely that's going to be the key for elk hunting as a non-resident over the counter at least on the archery side going forward.
Yeah. What about, I mean, other than the obvious weapon change and everything, what about rifle?
Yeah, so there are some change, like the area I used to hunt 3 and 4 and 301 up in there near Craig. It's where the really bad winters were 2 years ago that we talked about. And everyone's like, oh, it's the wolves. Well, really, it was the winter. I mean, the winters wiped out the best pronghorn hunting in the state, in my opinion. decent mule deer and decent and the biggest elk herd by number, not necessarily in quality, but I mean they had that elk herd was a third of our state's population of elk. I mean, just absolutely massive herd. And that entire area has gone to private land only for rifle hunting. If you're over the counter, it's great. I mean, if you do have private land access, you probably, as long as it's decent ground and you have enough area, you probably will have a shot at an elk, a bull. Maybe one legal bull and your whole group gets a shot at, but you probably will have a chance. Outside of that, it's pretty opened up. Most of the West that's been traditionally over the counter access is still that way. But that kind of pocket as of 301, 4 down to like 24 and 23, and around in there, it's the growing part of got to be private land only, which it's good and bad. There's definitely a need to recover that population. It's also going to be the hit hardest by the wolves because they dropped one on basically the eastern boundary of that area and the western boundary, and they come down from Wyoming. So it's getting hit 3 times by wolves, had 2 bad winters in a row. And so it definitely needs some recovery efforts, and realistically decreasing tags is really the only option in that area, just because it's already extremely good habitat. There's not a whole lot to be done in terms of that. Other thing, so other than that, like that's the big changes on elk. CWD is still growing in a lot of areas. It's not as rapid as it was, but we're still having an expanse of CWD growth in elk to some degree. It's moving. It's not moving south as fast as or as far as we're worried that it will. So that's kind of good. Kind of stops around Montrose on a north-south line, and then kind of snakes around up and around from there, kind of through Denver and then back up through the mountains and stuff. So it's good. It's not growing that much in terms of like distance, but it's still growing in the herds that it's in already.
Right.
And then on the deer front, on the CWCD side, let's see what they say. I haven't looked at it. It's still really bad. I'm in a lot of places. Like I was deer 7 in a row that was positive. Pretty much any mature buck out there is absolutely positive. The occurrence rate is above 50%. So if your deer is 3 years old, it's definitely got it. It's just the way it is out there. It may be the worst unit in the whole state, to be honest. And a few other areas, like I was talking about, like 301 and 4 have been in that same category. This bad weather's helped kill some of that down. So now it's only getting 20% occurrence, which is great, but still too high.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. But the pronghorn is the other kind of big change in terms of there's a few less over-the-counter units for archery, and its season's funky. Where the first 15 days is bucks only, and then after that you can do either sex for the next 20. So it's basically like August 15th to the end of August, it's buck only, and then the 1st of September to the 20th, it's either sex. And it's usually only in kind of the bad units or like where land access is an issue. And so pronghorns with archery equipment, it's like either you need to hire an outfitter for basically the eastern half of the state or really expect to hunt like 25 of those 40 days. Like
Gotcha.
Expect a lot of time, effort, and energy, and finding the right spot and being there every other day for the whole season.
Yeah, and that's a grind for sure. That's not something a lot of people, I won't say they don't enjoy doing it, but I mean, you know as good as I do, looking at the same country for days on end can get old sometimes, and certainly just how much time you have to actually spend out there comes into play as well. So
yeah, sit in that water hole for 35 days is just rough. That's not something I'm going to do. I'll be
that
real.
does not sound appealing, man. I sat on a water hole in Montana for one day, like sun up to sundown, and I thought I was going to die.
I mean, yeah, you see how I hunt usually, and you're moving the whole day, and like you don't sit still unless you're on something. So it just doesn't work for me. Um, but yeah,
No, and I
I
get
think
that. You got to hunt different ways in different spots, but I mean, the way that you hunt and everything, it was applicable out there too. And I mean, we looked at it on Onyx by the end of the day and or the end of the week, and it was, I think we covered like over 68,000 acres or something like that over the course of a week. I think that
we
was the math, but
yeah, close to 70,000. I remember that much, but it was nuts. Which I mean, that's just how it works out there. But
yeah,
I think the other thing, like kind of back to the wolves and stuff, the one thing like we can really actually do right now is hunt more bears and more mountain lions. Mountain lions are much harder and obviously less success rate, and you also have to take a special class to pass that to get your mountain lion tag. So like the bar to entry is a lot more than just like, hey, I want to just spend some extra money and call it good. Like a mountain lion is an investment of your time and like more than just like, hey, I'm going to just show up tomorrow and get that.
yeah,
Where adding on a bear tag to most licenses is really easy. And they're not that expensive this year. They're up to like they're still under $300 for a non-resident. So it's not cheap, but it's definitely the
not a
one time you see
$1,000
one.
elk
If you don't
tag.
have, yeah, I can say if you already in a great, let's say you have an elk tag and a bear and a deer tag, you're in 1,500 already plus your license. You're in basically 1,700. So you'll be 2 grand total. But you're really going to regret not having that bear tag if you see, you know, if that bear shows up and you don't have it. So
Yeah,
that's my one thing is definitely like I would recommend adding a bear license anytime you can. And the off chance you see one, you're not gonna regret it if you do. They do take a little bit of work because you have to get them checked in and stuff and checked by the state. You have about a week to do it. So definitely make sure if you do get one, you bring your book with you so you know where you have to take it and how to do it. It's not super hard. I've personally haven't done it, but it's not that difficult.
yeah, gotcha. Good to know. Bear tags are easy to tack on.
Yeah,
Well,
which
what? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, they're very easy to tack on. So definitely do it when you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. Well, I want to reference our audience to the written resource, which by the time this podcast airs will be published, that you compile for us on fallobsession.com. You've every year you also put this in a written educational format where people can scroll through and reference it if they don't want to go back and listen to a podcast over and over or try to remember a timestamp from this episode. But um, what else? What other big things do we need to know about this year and these tags, and the changes that happen?
Um, there's not really that many more like major changes. Like I said, the money's probably the big one that most people will complain about. That's just going to happen every time. Other than that, um, the a lot of the auction tags are going or gone already. So that's one thing that updated this year was to say which ones are already gone. Like for example, the mountain goat one sells at Sheep Show every year. It's actually gone down in cost quite a bit. I don't think you or I will ever buy it, but it's only
You know I
47,000.
won't ever buy
It was
it.
only 47,000 this year. Like
Only
just
47K.
but it's when they had a bighorn sheep go for 1.3 million. It's very affordable comparatively. Obviously, it's not affordable for you or I, but that's one thing where like the raffle tags are all going to be at an event that are going to get drawn like May 17th for I believe it's pronghorn, bighorn, and mountain goat, or pronghorn, bighorn, and both bighorns. I can't remember which, but with Bighorn Society for their big show that's here in Loveland in mid-May. So that'll be like if you're looking at an opportunity and you're like, hey, I put in anyways, but these are higher opportunities, especially on the pronghorn, because if you draw it, you can hunt anywhere, seasons longer, any weapon for an extended period. So if you had like actual time, it'd be a great way to if you get the lucky one. And tickets are only $25, so that's pretty reasonable comparatively to
Yeah.
it'd be actually cheaper to put in for that every year than put in for the draw. And then if you win that, you don't have to buy your actual license and everything.
Mhm.
Not saying don't, because we need the Cardo really needs the funding, because um, I have a feeling they're gonna have to start paying depredation stuff, and it's costing us lots and lots of money, and they are starting to pay those claims out. So we need the extra money. So I wouldn't be shocked if they do something to increase it costs even more. I wouldn't be shocked if they increase the percentage it goes up by to 1.5 times or double the cost of living index. But I don't think that's in the cards anytime soon. But by 28, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like the 2028 podcast will be the big dog. So
Yeah, because every 4 years is the major changes. So 24 had the ones where they reduced out a bunch of tags, and then this year is kind of just a rebound to bringing a couple of them back, but reducing non-resident opportunity. Whereas 28 will have the whole draw system, something that's being reworked, which we'll see what happens when we get there. But like I said, I would recommend, if you've got over 20 points in any one ant species, I'd be figuring out, am I going to go this year? Am I going to go next year? Because 27, everyone's going to be offloading to get out of those. So you'll be more competitive even, I feel like, that year versus, this year you might have a 50-50, and then same next year with the year after. If you're 1 point short, you're 1 point short. You're not going to get it. So I would, go for the best you can if you have the time off from work and everything to do it. If you're sub 10 points, I would say, see where you're at. If this is a good year or next year's a good year, you might even burn those and just start over. Because I think it's going to bring down the best tags a little bit. I think the best tags are going to become even more out of reach, actually, where they're going to be, 35 points. Whereas, and I think the middle group is going to be, instead of 15, it's going to be like 8 to 12. But you're only going to draw it one time between those. Whereas right now, if you get to 15, you get it every time. So it's going to
yeah,
be a different ball game for sure.
yeah, crazy the planning out in advance and everything like that. For tags like this in this state, it's just, I mean, you know me, it's foreign to me down here in Texas. So
Yeah, and I know. That's why I just keep saying, just keep throwing your money at it. We'll get it figured out one of these days. And when you have time, we'll get it worked. But
yeah,
um, I'm lucky in that I have good opportunities that are reasonable tags to get. But like my good tag at my farm for rifle, for the mule deer bucks, it's 4 or 5 points, and I think it's going to just go up, every couple years from there and get worse and worse. And I know from like our landowner tags, it's up to like 6 or 7 to draw it.
oh really?
Which, um, if we want the one we can use as a family member, and if we want the like one we can give to anybody, I want to say it's close to 10 points now. Which,
Wow.
I mean, I get it. There's not that many tags, and only 10% go that way, but it's getting fewer and fewer opportunities, um, for me personally, which is, it is what it is. We've managed everything and out there and take care of it, but it's, getting to hunt mule deer once every 3 to 5 years is rough.
Yeah, that's changed a bunch. What about if you have some southern guy that wants to come out there and crawl through your fields with a bow? What are his chances?
I think Bo is still at, I think this year you'll still be able to draw it with 0. Um, I think going forward, 1 point will probably always still get it with a bow. It's just, as you know, it's just so hard.
Yeah.
And so they don't mind issuing more tags because the opportunity, like your realistic percentage of taking animals so low. I mean, let's be real. You got really ding lucky, and we had
Oh
the
yeah,
perfect, and
I'm
we had
well
the
aware
perfect.
how
I mean,
lucky I was.
yeah, we had the perfect setup and everything with that. So, and like I said, I've hunted it for years, and I know where everything is, and it just happened to work out great. But yeah, I can say like right now, like 3 points, a 50-50 shot with a rifle of resident to get it. As a non-resident, it's 50-50 at 8 points.
Hmm.
So there's a chance, but it's, for bow, it's much lower. It looks like 0 will still draw it most of the time, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got lucky for sure. And for our listeners that want to tune into that experience for 23, it's the Flatland Deer Country film on YouTube and podcasts 166, 167, and 170 are your go-to episodes if you want to listen to the stories. So, well, man, one thing I did want to ask as well, because you were talking about you talked about different scenarios with whether it be elk or pronghorn, in various regard to where it might be in someone's best interest to go with an outfitter.
Yeah.
Do you have any for our new listeners that might be in that boat, or not, maybe not a new listener, but new hunters to Colorado that might be in that boat? Do you have any recommendations on where they can go to find an outfitter that would suit their needs?
So first thing, Colorado requires you to be licensed and bonded and all that stuff. And there's actually a state website that'll tell you if someone is. So I just tell people check that first before you start Googling it. Because if their name's not on there, they're not legally allowed to operate, and you're going to have so many problems because like they're going to either just like do not outfitting, and by outfitting, but would be like, oh yeah, here's some land you can hunt on that I have permission on, and you're like, okay, there's nothing right, and nothing will be in writing. Maybe in writing, maybe not, but they can't actually guide you legally. So that's what I always tell people: start there, and then figure out like how many points they say it takes, and look at what it actually says online. If they don't have land, or if they have landowner tags, like verify that like they are the actual landowner or they are the designee, because that's who has to sign it. So like we have some for our farm where my dad is the only one who can sign those tags. I can't sign them. My brother can't sign them. My uncles can't sign them. My grandpa can't sign them. My grandma can't sign them. Just my dad. And so that's a huge thing too, is there's a way to verify that with the state. And so you always want to call on those two and be like, hey, this is, this is what I'm looking at getting. Is this person actually able to sign this tag? Because there's one named person and that's it. And if that guy dies, you're screwed. Like, so make sure if you do put up money for one of those, make sure you get it in the mail before you go in case something happens. Because if you get there and he didn't sign it, and you're out of luck, whether you paid or not. So there is a whole qualification there. That's kind of the two big things: is one, make sure they're legal, and then make sure, like, if they say there's a tag available for you, make sure that tag is actually legal. Because the difference in like drawing a tag and not draw, like, especially here in a month, you should have it figured out if you're going to be able to like put in for a tag and have your outfitter lined up by mid-March, because realistically they need to know what their clients are going to look like, and make sure you have enough points to draw where they want you to hunt. And then the other big thing is your budget. So be really upfront with the absolute high end you can spend. Because they may say, oh, it's this price if you draw your tag, and then it's $5,000 more if you can't. I know one of the outfitters that hunts units by me, it's for deer, it's $9,500 if you can draw your own tag, or it's $15,500 if you can't. So they value that tag at $6,000, and if you want to just buy the tag from them, they charge you $10,000.
Wow.
But on the caveat, the tag gives you access to every piece of property that landowner owns that's more than 50 feet from their house. So keep that in mind too. If you do buy a landowner tag, know where that land is that comes with it, and make sure you get like the whole spiel on everything that's in the unit that your tag is good for, because you can legally hunt all of it, even if they say you can't. If it's within 50 feet of their house, different conversation, but otherwise it's every piece of property they own in that unit in their name. If it's like, this farm, and then that's what the name is in, but like they own other stuff in a different name, that's not going to work. But some outfitters get around it doing that, where they'll get their landowner tags in a couple different names that they kind of split up if they sell them. It's kind of shady, but it is what it is. So just keep that in mind. Like, whatever their like thing is, you need to really check on Onyx and figure out like, this is all the stuff. So when you're looking at buying and want to ask them, if they won't tell you, that's a huge red flag right there. If they won't tell you who it is, or what the land looks like, or the numbers on it. So
Gotcha. Yeah, good to know. A whole lot more to it than just than just buying a license. So
Yeah, and then just shooting a pig in Texas for sure. Or I'm just like, hey Sam, what do we got to wear? And you're just like, yeah, you just gotta have clothes. Like just show up.
just be comfortable, man.
Yeah.
Have clothes and something that you can kill with.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of on that note too, then the orange thing. It's already always been this way in Colorado, but you got to have basically a vest or 500 square inches on your chest. So it's either a vest or a coat. I mean, it's got to be true blaze orange or true blaze pink. Can't be camo hybrid. Can't be like, if it's too faded, they'll fine you. So, what I always tell people is buy one or two of those extra little Walmart things that are $5 and just keep them in your backpack in case yours rips or whatever. You have a backup. You also have to wear a hat, either stocking hat or ball cap or other kind of hat that's blaze. Our rifle hunter hat was super good luck for me in the past. So if we still have those in the store, definitely shop those.
Yeah.
Do we have those back?
No, not yet, but
Not yet.
before
Okay.
before next hunting season, we have plans to restock on those. So, and there
Okay.
will definitely be we'll post when those are there. So all the more reason to keep an eye on fallobsession.com and what's in the store, because our goal is to have some more items this year like that have a little bit more of a functional value when it comes to our Western hunters that need that orange. So
Yeah. And so that's big things. And obviously know what animal you're hunting. If you're, if you get a deer tag, make sure is it whitetail only? If it says just deer, it's good for whatever's there, whitetail or muleys. If it says whitetail, it's whitetail only. And there's a lot of places where like the whitetail only tag is really easy to draw, or, like you can even buy leftovers with the counter, or there are over the counter options. So if that's the case, like be really sure, like, hey, this is a whitetail tag. I know that, and you need to know that going in. Usually there's a lesser population of them. Quality is not usually there quite as much as the muleys. Like at my farm, you're, probably looking at like a 20 to 40-inch difference in your high-end bucks. There are some, 160s, 180s, maybe white muleys out there. And then whitetails, there might be some that break 160. It just kind of depends on where we see them and whatever else. So,
yeah. Gotcha. Well, man, what else, before we wrap it up, what else we need to know, or any other words of wisdom for anybody?
that's really all I think for this year. Obviously, if you have questions, reach out. I'll answer them. Read it over, take your time, make sure you put in before the first. I'd say, they are going to open the putting in for stuff on March 1st. So I would say make your account that day, buy your, small game license and your habitat stamp. That way that's done. And then you can take a couple days to figure out exactly what you want to put in for and get your buddies on board to put in for, what you want to draw and go from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, guys. Well, if y'all, hopefully everybody learned something from this or gained something from it. If you're interested in hunting Colorado, and or even if you have hunted it before and you're trying to figure out what's next, hopefully it's been educational for you. As Tim has mentioned, he's more than happy to help anybody that might have additional questions or something that we might have not covered in appropriate detail in this episode. So if that's the case, send us a message on whatever social platform you want to, and we'll put you in contact, and Tim can answer your questions. He's helped a lot of guys on our team, myself included, over the years get some information or gain some knowledge in areas where we're trying to hunt. So appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing this again.
Of course.
All right, guys, shorter episode for y'all this week, but appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back again next time for another Fall Obsession podcast, and I will catch you then.